Captain America has always stood as the paragon of virtue and the personification of the good old US of A. He's one of the most important characters in the Marvel universe, and while he can go toe-to-toe physically with plenty of powerful figures, one of the most important aspects of his personality is his strong moral compass. Rogers is just one of those guys you can't help but respect, but even he isn't right all of the time. Everyone gets something wrong at least once in their lives, and Captain America is no different, because sometimes standing for what you believe in without giving a second thought to another person's point of view puts you in the wrong. With that in mind, I'm Will for What Culture, and here are 10 characters who proved Captain America wrong. 10. The Punisher. There were a few moments in Marvel's Civil War that put Captain America to the test. One such event involved Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. When Cap is beginning to marshal his forces for the coming conflict, he is approached by a couple of guys named the Plunder and Goldbug. They were villains who sought to reform themselves by joining up with Cap's band of superheroes who opposed the Superhero Registration Act. Before they had a chance to do anything, Punisher unloaded on them, killing both men instantly. After all, killing bad guys is what Punisher does. Cap did not appreciate what happened and immediately turned on Castle. He beat him relentlessly, but Castle refused to raise a finger in his defense. Captain America is a hero to Castle, and he was more than happy to take a beating from the man. The thing is, Castle was unarmed at this point, which means Cap was pummeling an unarmed man nearly to death, all the while calling him a murderous piece of trash. Through his pacifism in their fight, Castle illustrated Cap's tendency to perhaps take things too far when fighting for what he believes in, a running theme throughout the entirety of the Civil War event. 9. The Illuminati. Time Runs Out was the precursor story for Secret Wars, and involved the final incursion between Earth 616 and Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe. In the story, the Avengers have declared Iron Man and the rest of the Illuminati its enemies, pushing them into hiding as the multiverse begins to decay. Eventually, after confronting them about their perceived inaction in looking for a solution in the impending crisis, they revealed what had been going on for 8 months. Reed Richards informed them of their plan to create a new planet intended for Earth's inhabitants, and, by the way, they also erased part of Cap's memory of the incursion event. Cap was not happy about this, and he let Tony know by beating the crap out of him. The thing Cap didn't seem to realize or accept was the fact that Tony and the Illuminati were right to do what they did. Had they kept Cap in the loop, they wouldn't have been able to keep Earth from being destroyed up till that point. Cap just didn't want to hear it, which is why he spoke with his fists and lost the ultimate argument. 8. Time. Okay, so Time isn't exactly a character, but there's something about Captain America's past that needs to be addressed. Captain America was created to be a symbol of American patriotism in 1941, which was on the eve of American involvement in World War II. Cap was punching Nazis in the face, and that's not something anyone should complain about, but when it came to the war in the Pacific, things got ugly. There were numerous instances of Captain America going up against Chinese or Japanese criminals and saying things like, quote, "Here comes some China boys, and they're not waving laundry tickets." Yes, like a few comics from the 1940s, Cap's golden age years have not all aged well. 7. Hope Summers. Cap is a proud man, but he's also stubborn and, on more than one occasion, hypocritical. In Civil War, he took the side of anti-registration because he believed that superheroes' personal freedoms shouldn't be compromised for the sake of public safety, and he died feeling that way. Fast forward a few years to the Avengers vs. X-Men event, and things have changed. The argument between the Avengers and the X-Men revolves around the Phoenix Force, which wants to find a new home in Hope Summers. Essentially, Captain America doesn't believe that Hope has the responsibility to manage the amount of power the cosmic force would bestow upon her. As an agent of the government, he decides to take matters into his own hands and attempts to take her for the sake of public safety, which is exactly what he fought against in Civil War. 6. Daredevil. In the 80s, Captain America was all about fighting the war on drugs. You couldn't open a comic during that time and not find some mention of the government's crackdown on illicit substances. And even Cap wasn't immune. In the story, Streets of Poison, Cap finds a dealer who blows up his stash while Cap is in the building. The explosion results in Cap absorbing some of the meth in the lab, and as a result, it chemically bonded with his super soldier serum to make him super addicted to crystal meth. It's not Cap's fault in any way, but he went from being a great guy to being a complete lunatic who was as hopped up on goofballs as any character could possibly be. During this time, he beat the ever-living crap out of Daredevil, who only showed up to help out a friend. Daredevil proved Cap wrong about his own condition and how it was affecting his behavior, seeing as he wouldn't normally beat the crap out of someone who just wanted to help him. 5. Wolverine. One of the biggest problems when determining whether or not someone was right and Captain America was wrong in any given situation is moral relativism. What may seem right to one might be completely different to what is morally right to another. In Avengers vs. X-Men, Cap and Wolverine had an exchange that neither was 100% right about. On Wolverine's side, he was ready to kill Hope Summers so that she couldn't be taken over by the Phoenix Force. He argued that it was morally right to kill one person if it spared the lives of everyone else. Captain America believed it was morally reprehensible to kill one person even to save others, and he wasn't about to let Wolverine carry out his plan. In this instance, both men were equally right and equally wrong, as this kind of argument has been discussed via the trolley problem for years. Eventually, words fail them and the two get to fighting, with Cap managing to kick Wolverine out the back of a plane. Seeing as it's sort of impossible to win that argument, kicking Wolvie out the plane was probably the best choice available to Cap. But that doesn't mean he was right, and it doesn't mean Wolverine was wrong. 4. Bucky Barnes. These days, it's common knowledge that Bucky Barnes survived World War II to become the Winter Soldier, but before 2005, that wasn't a thing. Captain America survived the war, but Bucky was believed dead since the war, and that death haunted Cap for years. However, Captain America was wrong because, as already stated, Bucky Barnes was alive all this time. Although, admittedly a Soviet assassin, but still, the Soviets and Bucky proved Captain America wrong for years of his life, as he carried around terrible guilt and sadness over the belief that his old friend and sidekick was dead. 3. Himself. Everyone goes through life proving themselves wrong at one time or another. Telling yourself you can't do something but pulling it off is certainly one way, but for Captain America, it was more about a bad decision he made in the MCU that ultimately came back to bite America's ass in the end. In Captain America the Winter Soldier, Cap learns that Tony Stark's parents were killed by Hydra. More specifically, they were killed by the Winter Soldier. When he learns this key piece of information his friend and ally would certainly like to know, he keeps it to himself. The following film, Civil War, sees his decision to withhold the information about Tony's parents blowing up in his face. Tony does not take the news well, and he sees Cap's silence on the issue as a betrayal. What follows is the worst fight in the MCU, in that it divided the Avengers and drove a wedge between Captain America and Iron Man, which wouldn't be resolved until half of the universe gets wiped from existence by Thanos. Cap was abjectly wrong in his decision not to tell Tony about his folks, thus proving himself wrong in the process. 2. Iron Man. There are a lot of things you can say about Marvel's Civil War, but whatever side of the argument you fall on, it's easy to see both sides have merit. As with the Wolverine entry, the thing about this fight is both Iron Man and Cap were right and wrong. Captain America proved Stark wrong by pointing out his draconian methods of outright imprisonment, and that his recklessness got Goliath killed. On the other side of the argument, Iron Man was able to show Cap that he was in the wrong by fighting against the government he was essentially the icon of, and in the end, Cap gave himself up when he saw how things were progressing as a direct result of his actions. Both were right and both were wrong, but at the end of the day, Captain America was the one left dead on a slab. 1. Nick Fury. Typically, when a character winds up getting frozen in ice for 70 years, they will awaken to a world they don't understand, and it takes time for them to adapt. That's what happened to Steve Rogers in the MCU, but he managed to work his way into the modern world fairly easily, despite being from a different era. In the first Avengers, Rogers meets Fury in the gym while he's working out on a heavy bag. As they talk about the current threat, Cap keeps on beating the bag, and they have this exchange. Nick Fury says, "He's called Loki. He's not from around here. There's a lot we'll have to bring you up to speed on if you're in. This world has gotten even stranger than you already know." Steve replies, "At this point, I doubt anything would surprise me." And Nick Fury quips back, $10 says you're wrong. Later in the film, long after most viewers have forgotten the details of their conversation, Rogers finds himself on a helicarrier. It's certainly an impressive ship, but nothing too much out of the realm of possibility for a man who fought during World War II against Hydra agents armed with Tesseract-enabled weaponry. That is, of course, until the vessel camouflages itself and takes to the air. Without a word, Rogers pulls out a $10 bill and hands it to Fury. It's subtle, it's beautiful, and it's the best joke of the Whedon era of the MCU. And there you have it, folks, 10 characters who proved Captain America wrong. Feel free to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, and drop me a follow on Twitter at YouSlyDogU. I'm Will for What Culture, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.